Daniel Rowe made the same cup of tea every morning. He did not think of it as a ritual. A ritual sounded chosen. This was only what happened after the alarm and before the shower finished waking him. The kettle clicked on at 6:22. The blue mug came from the left side of the second shelf. The tea bag went in first, then the water, then the spoon on the counter with its handle pointing toward the sink. Daniel stood by the same kitchen window while the tea darkened. The street outside was still gray. A delivery van rolled past with one headlight dimmer than the other. Mrs. Bell from number 16 opened her curtains and looked out. Daniel lifted the mug before it was ready, because he always lifted it before it was ready. That was when he noticed. The thought in his head was the same thought he had yesterday. It was not close to the same, it was the same. He was thinking about the meeting at 9, the report he had already finished, and the way Mark would ask for one more change while pretending it was a small favor. He was thinking about his sister's message from the night before and the answer he had not sent because any answer would invite 3 more messages. He was thinking that he should leave earlier, though he would not. The order of the thoughts was familiar. Daniel set the mug down. He looked at the kettle, the spoon, the mug, the phone beside the toaster, and the small brown stain on the grout behind the sink. He knew each thing before his eyes reached it. Even the stain had become part of the morning. He had not chosen any of this for a long time. The thought should have been dramatic. It was not. It was only a fact. Daniel picked up the mug again. The tea was too hot. He drank it anyway because that was also what happened. His phone buzzed. The message was from Mark. "Can you look over the client notes before 9? Should only take 10. Daniel read the message once and already knew the next 5 things. He would type, sure. Mark would send 3 documents. Daniel would read them while standing in the kitchen. He would leave late. He would arrive at work annoyed and polite. By lunch, he would have forgotten that he had ever had a choice. His thumb moved over the screen. Then he stopped. He put the phone down without answering. That was not enough to break anything. It only made the kitchen quieter. Daniel looked at the mug in his hand. The mug was blue, chipped near the handle, and too heavy when full. He had bought it from a charity shop 7 years earlier because it cost 50 pence and held enough tea to make a second cup unnecessary. For no sensible reason, he raised it a little. "Oh, brave blue vessel," he said. His voice sounded wrong in the kitchen. He looked toward the window, though no one could have heard him. The delivery van was gone. Mrs. Bell's curtains were still open. Daniel should have stopped there. Instead, he held the mug higher and tried again. "Oh, steaming friend of bitter mornings, do not scald my foolish mouth before I have earned the day." The words were not good. They were not even properly old-fashioned. He knew that while he said them, and the knowledge made the whole thing worse. Then he laughed. It came out once, short and surprised. The kitchen did not change. The kettle did not glow. The phone did not stop existing. Mark still wanted the client notes. The stain was still on the grout. But something inside Daniel missed its step. The next thought did not arrive on time. He stood there with the mug in his hand and felt the small, empty place where the normal morning should have continued. It was not happiness. It was not courage. It was only a gap. Daniel had forgotten gaps could exist. The phone buzzed again. Mark had sent a question mark. Daniel looked at it and almost answered the old way. His thumb knew where the letters were. His face had already prepared the small frown he wore when he obeyed and resented obedience at the same time. Then he remembered the post. He had seen it 2 nights earlier on X while he was scrolling in bed. The post was from Pippa Una. He did not follow her closely, but someone had shared her LifeUnloop idea, and the phrase had stayed with him because it sounded like a thing he needed before he knew why. Do one surprising thing. Not a grand change, not a punishment, not a plan to become a better man by Friday. One surprising thing outside the script. Daniel had liked the post and then done nothing with it. Now he stood in the kitchen with cooling tea and an unanswered work message, and the idea returned with more weight. He opened X and found the post again. He read enough to remember the point. The brain built loops because loops saved effort. Once a pattern ran long enough, deciding harder did not reach the part that was running it. Surprise could. Daniel looked at the blue mug. "You started this," he told it. That was stupid too, but not as stupid as spending another whole day inside a script he could recite before breakfast. He answered Mark. "I will look after I get in." Daniel read the sentence twice. It was not rude, it was not heroic, it was simply not the old answer. Mark replied almost at once. "Need it before the meeting." Daniel felt the old pull in his chest and stomach. It was familiar enough to have a shape. He could have obeyed it without thinking. He put the phone face down. Then he did the second surprising thing, because the first one had been an accident, and he wanted to know what would happen if one was chosen. He poured the tea into a travel cup, took the blue mug to the sink, and left the spoon pointing the wrong way on purpose. The wrong spoon looked ridiculous. It also looked like proof. Daniel showered, dressed, and put on the same dark jacket he wore most workdays. At the front door, he picked up his keys from the small bowl by the post and stopped again. He always took the road by the school. It was not the fastest road. It was only the road he took. He checked the time. If he took the canal path, he would have to walk to the next bus stop. It would add 8 minutes. It would also make no sense. Daniel stepped outside and locked the door. The morning air was cool and damp. Mrs. Bell was still at her window. "You're early," she called through the glass after opening it 2 inches. Daniel looked at his watch. He was not early, he was leaving at the same time. "Different route," he said. Mrs. Bell blinked, as if routes were not meant to differ on weekdays. Daniel walked toward the canal path before she could ask why. At the corner, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He did not take it out. The path ran behind the houses and under the railway bridge. Daniel had lived 10 minutes from it for 11 years and had used it fewer than 5 times. The canal water was dull green. A shopping trolley sat half-submerged near the far bank. Daniel stopped under the bridge. The old morning had not followed him cleanly here. It was still near, Mark was still waiting. His sister still wanted an answer, work still existed, nothing had been solved. But the thoughts had lost their order. That was enough for one morning. Daniel took out his phone and opened a blank note. He wrote one line. One surprising thing every day. He looked at it, then added another line. No explaining it to people who need the old me. That line felt too large for the canal path, so he nearly deleted it. He kept it. A train passed overhead, loud enough to shake dust from the bridge. Daniel stood still until the sound faded. Then he walked to the next bus stop with tea in a travel cup, a spoon left wrong in his kitchen, and the first small gap of his life still open inside him. Daniel put his watch on the wrong wrist before he left for work the next morning. He almost changed it back at once. The wrongness was clean and immediate. The strap sat where no strap belonged. The face of the watch pressed against the wrong bone. His left wrist felt naked and slightly offended. That made it useful. Daniel stood in the hallway with his coat half on and looked at the watch. "You are staying there," he said. The watch said nothing, which was sensible. He picked up his phone from the little bowl by the post and put it in his left trouser pocket instead of his right. That felt wrong too, but not as wrong as the watch. He thought he might forget about the phone. He was correct. By the time he reached the end of the street, the phone was back in his right pocket. Daniel stopped beside Mrs. Bell's low wall and looked down at himself. He had no memory of moving it. That was useful too, though it was not flattering. He moved the phone back to the left pocket and walked on. At the bus stop, his right hand went to his right pocket and found nothing. His body gave him a small moment of alarm before his mind caught up. The phone was on the left. He had put it there on purpose. Daniel smiled despite himself. By the time the bus arrived, it was back in his right pocket again. "All right," he said quietly, "you are a strong one." A woman beside him glanced over. Daniel gave her the harmless face of a man who had not just spoken to a pocket. The office was already warm when he arrived. It always was. The heating came on too early and too hard, and everyone complained about it without doing anything useful. Daniel took off his coat, hung it on the back of his chair, and reached to check the time. His left wrist was bare. For 1 second, his body believed he had lost the watch. Then he looked at his right wrist. There it was. The small surprise woke him again. Mark appeared before Daniel had opened his inbox. "Did you get those notes done?" Mark asked. Daniel set his bag under the desk. "I said I would look when I got in." Mark waited, as if the missing apology would arrive if he gave it enough room. Daniel opened his laptop. "The meeting is at 9, Mark said. "Yes. So we need them before 9. "I will do them now." Mark stared at him for another second. Daniel knew the old shape of this moment. He was supposed to say he should have done them earlier. He was supposed to make Mark's poor timing feel like Daniel's failure. Then Mark could forgive him and stay comfortable. Daniel did not give him that. He logged in and opened the client folder. Mark walked away with a small hard breath. The world did not end. Daniel read the notes, corrected 2 dates, found 1 missing attachment, and sent the file at 8:46. It took 14 minutes. It would have taken 14 minutes at home too, except then it would have stolen his morning and taught Mark nothing. Daniel leaned back and reached for his phone. His right pocket was empty again. He had moved the phone back to the left after getting off the bus and forgotten it. For once, the unloop had held for almost an hour. He took the phone out and saw a message from his sister, Claire. "Are you ignoring me, or just being Daniel?" He almost typed, "Sorry, just busy." That was the old answer. It apologized before knowing whether he had done anything wrong. He looked at the watch on his right wrist. The wrongness helped. He typed, "I saw your message. I will answer tonight." He sent it before he could add a softener. Claire did not reply at once. That also did not end the world. By mid-morning, Daniel had checked the wrong wrist 9 times. He had reached for the wrong phone pocket 7 times. He had moved the phone back to the right pocket 3 times without noticing. He wrote the numbers on a sticky note. Watch 9. Pocket 7. Lost a pocket 3. The list made him think of the movie Groundhog Day. He had watched it every few years since he was a kid. Everyone liked that film. People said they liked it because Bill Murray was funny, and he was. But Daniel thought people liked it because everyone knew the feeling. Same morning, same people, same song, same small humiliations waiting in the same places. The terrible part was not that the day repeated. The terrible part was how long Bill Murray stayed himself inside it. Daniel looked at the sticky note. He had been doing a quieter version of that. He had not stolen money or learned everyone's secrets, but he had learned how to survive his loop. He knew when Mark would ask. He knew when Claire would pull. He knew which joke to make at the printer and which silence to keep in meetings. He had become skilled at a day he did not want. That was a miserable talent. At lunch, he did not go to the sandwich shop beside the office. His feet tried to take him there. They turned left at the glass doors before he had made a decision. Daniel stopped, turned around, and crossed the street. There was a small cafe on the corner that sold soup, flatbread, and things with names he had always ignored because the sandwich shop was easier. Daniel stood in the doorway longer than he needed to. The woman behind the counter waited. "What can I get you?" she asked. Daniel looked at the menu. He nearly ordered soup because soup was safe enough to count as new without being too new. That was cheating, and he knew it. "The lentil flatbread," he said, "and whatever that green drink is." The woman looked pleased. "Mint and cucumber." "Of course it is." "Do you not like mint and cucumber?" "I do not know. That is why I am buying it." She laughed once and rang it up. Daniel took the food outside. There were 3 empty tables near the cafe wall, all facing the street. He would normally choose the one in the corner, back to the wall, where no one could easily see him. He sat at the middle table, facing the building instead. It was a bad view. Brick, a drain pipe, and a faded poster for a band that had probably broken up years ago. Daniel ate there anyway. The flatbread was better than his sandwich. The green drink tasted like a garden in cold water. He drank half of it. He did not like it exactly. He liked that he did not know what he thought yet. That was new. Samir from the office came out of the sandwich shop across the street with the usual meal in the usual white paper bag. Samir saw him and raised the bag. Wrong side of the road, Dan. Daniel looked at his lunch, his wrong wrist, and the bad brick view. I am studying for a new role as a difficult man, he said. Samir smiled. Looks good on you. That landed in Daniel more strongly than it should have. Most people at work liked Daniel because he made their lives easier. Samir had just liked him for being slightly less easy. There was a difference. When Daniel went back to the office, he moved his phone to the left pocket again. It stayed there until 3:12. Then he found it in his right pocket while standing at the printer. He laughed. Priya looked up from the next machine. Something funny, she asked. My pocket is winning. She nodded slowly. I am not going to ask, wise. Near 5, Mark sent another message. Can you clean up the deck before tomorrow? Should only take 20. Daniel looked at the words. He had already finished his work. The deck was Mark's. 20 minutes meant an hour if Mark had touched it. The old pull started. Daniel reached for his left wrist. No watch. The mistake stopped him. He looked at the right wrist, found the watch, and the small wrongness woke him one more time. He answered, I can look at it tomorrow morning. Mark replied with 3 dots that appeared, vanished, and appeared again. Daniel watched them for a moment, then put the phone in his left pocket. He shut down his computer at 5:02. On the bus home, Daniel made a note under the 2 lines from the day before. Wrong wrist works. Phone pocket does not work yet. Buy the strange lunch. Sit where I would not sit. He read the list back and felt something he had not expected. He was interested in himself. Not proud, not transformed, interested. That was a surprise too. By the 4th day, people had begun to notice. Daniel had not done anything large. That was the strange part. He wore the watch on the wrong wrist again. He bought oranges instead of apples. He moved 1 chair in his living room so it faced the window instead of the television. He also changed his phone pocket every morning and lost that battle every morning. The phone kept returning to the right pocket like a trained animal. Daniel wrote it down anyway. Phone still winning. The first person to laugh was Mrs. Bell. She saw him leaving the house with an orange in his coat pocket because he had forgotten to put it in his bag. Breakfast trying to escape, she called. It has made a formal request, Daniel said. Mrs. Bell laughed and closed her window. That was all right. Her laugh did not ask him to become normal again. At work, the laughter was different. Priya saw the watch and pointed with her pen. Still doing that, yes. On purpose. That is the worrying part. She smiled and went back to her screen. Mark was less amused. At 10:15, he came to Daniel's desk with a folder and the expression he used when he wanted help without calling it help. Quick one, Mark said. Daniel looked at the folder, then at Mark. Can it wait until after lunch? Mark blinked. It is quick. Then it can wait. The sentence was not sharp. Daniel said it as plainly as he could. That seemed to make it worse. Mark looked around, as if someone else might confirm that Daniel had spoken in the wrong order. You have become very strict this week, he said. I have become slightly less early. Mark did not like that. He left the folder on Daniel's desk anyway. Daniel looked at it for a moment, then moved it to the corner where later things belonged. His right hand went to his right pocket, empty. For once the phone was still on the left. Daniel took that as a small victory and went back to his own work. At lunch, Samir found him outside behind the building, sitting on the low wall by the delivery bay. No one sat there. That was why Daniel had chosen it. New office? Samir asked. Better air. Samir sat beside him with his sandwich. For a minute they ate without talking. Then Samir said, "People are asking if you are all right." Because of the watch. The watch, the lunch, the fact that Mark looks annoyed and you do not look sorry. Daniel considered that. I am all right, good. Samir tore his sandwich wrapper in half and folded it into a small square. You are less boring this week, he said. Daniel looked at him. Samir shrugged. Not that you were bad boring, useful boring. Daniel laughed once. Useful boring was unpleasant because it was accurate. That evening, Claire called while Daniel was washing a pan he had used for dinner. He had cooked eggs at night because eggs at night felt wrong enough to count. He let the phone ring twice before answering. Are you ill? Claire asked. Hello to you too. You answered my message with a schedule. I answered it. You never answer like that. Daniel turned the pan under the water. That may be why I did it. Claire was quiet for half a second. What does that mean? It means I am trying not to do everything the usual way. Why? He could have explained Pippa Una, LifeUnloop, the watch, the phone pocket, the canal path, the terrible talent of being skilled at a day he did not want. He could feel the explanation lining up inside him, eager to ask permission. He did not give it the room. Because the usual way was making me dull, he said. Claire made a small sound. You are not dulls. She meant it kindly. Daniel dried the pan and put it in the wrong cupboard. Maybe not to you, Daniel. There it was, his name in the old tone. The tone that meant he should soften, explain, apologize, and make the other person comfortable before he knew what he thought. He looked at the cupboard. The pan did not belong there. It looked stupid beside the plates. He left it there. I am fine, he said. I will call you Sunday. You always call on Thursday. I know. He heard her waiting for more. He did not give more. After the call, the flat felt too quiet. For a moment, Daniel wanted to move the pan back, put the watch on the right wrist, call Claire again, answer Mark's folder by email, and prove that nothing was really changing. Then he noticed the wanting. It was not kindness. It was the loop asking to be fed. Daniel opened his notebook and wrote one sentence. People laugh until they want me back. He read it once. Then he added another. I am not going back just because they noticed. The phone was in his right pocket again. He had no idea when he had moved it. Daniel took it out, put it on the table, and laughed softly. Tomorrow, he told it. That was not a promise he knew how to keep yet. It was still the next true thing. On Friday morning, Daniel wrote a letter to his father. His father had been dead for 6 years, so there was no danger of posting it by mistake. That helped. Daniel sat at the kitchen table before work with the blue mug beside him and wrote by hand because typing made him too tidy. The first lines were polite, then they became true. He wrote that he had learned to be useful before he had learned to be alive. He wrote that every good report, quick answer, fixed problem, and swallowed argument had made him easier for other people to keep. The pen stopped there. Daniel read the sentence once and did not soften it. That was the unloop, not the letter, the sentence. He had expected the surprising thing to be writing to a dead man. That had been strange, but not deep. The deeper thing was seeing why usefulness had felt like safety. His father had praised finished jobs, quiet rooms, quick obedience, and boys who did not make trouble. Daniel had not thought of that as a wound. It had seemed too ordinary to count. Now he saw the old bargain plainly. Be easy, and you will be kept. He wrote that line too. His hand shook once. He waited until it stopped. He folded the letter, put it in an envelope, and wrote no address on the front. Then he placed it under the blue mug where he would have to see it when he came home. At work, Mark was waiting with another folder. Before lunch, Mark asked. No, Daniel said. Mark stared at him. Daniel waited. The old Daniel would have filled the silence with reasons. The new Daniel let the word stand alone. Mark took the folder away. At 11, Claire called. Daniel let it go to voicemail. At noon, he listened to the message. She sounded worried and irritated in equal parts. She said he was making things strange. She said people did not change their whole personality over a social media idea. She said she only wanted to know he was all right. Daniel almost called back at once. That was the family version of Mark's folder. It came wrapped in care, but it still asked him to put himself back where he belonged. Instead, he sent one message. I am all right. I am not available for the old argument today. The phone stayed quiet for 20 minutes. That silence felt like weather before rain. After work, Daniel did not take the bus home. He walked the wrong way first. There was no good reason for it. The road led behind the station, past shuttered shops and a betting office with dead flies in the window. It was not pretty. It was not spiritual. It was simply not his road. As he walked, he noticed how badly he wanted the road to reward him. A sign would have been nice. A stranger with the perfect sentence would have been useful. Even a dramatic rainstorm would have done. Nothing happened. That taught him more than a sign would have. He had been making even surprise into work. Do the odd thing, get the result, become fixed, earn the next place. The road did not pay him. It only let him walk without being useful. At the next corner, it bent toward the canal path from the first morning. He had not meant to come there. He did not think it was magic. He also did not think it was random in the old way. A woman stood under the railway bridge, playing a violin with the case open at her feet. The tune was simple and slow. Daniel did not know it, but his body did. He put 2 pounds in the case. The woman nodded without stopping. Daniel stood there until the song ended. Wrong road, she asked. Yes. Good, she said. Right roads are busy. That was all. No lesson followed. She began another tune, quicker this time, and Daniel walked on. At home, the envelope was still under the mug. Claire had sent 3 messages. Mark had sent one. Daniel did not open them yet. He took the letter from the envelope and read it standing by the sink. The words still hurt, but they were no longer only about his father. They were about Mark. They were about Claire. They were about every place where Daniel had mistaken being needed for being loved. They also made room. Daniel wrote one line in his notebook. The loop is not only in me. Then he added the next line before he could make it clever. It lives in what people expect me to feed. On Monday morning, Daniel found the deck waiting in his inbox. Mark had sent it at 11:43 on Sunday night with one line. Can you make this client ready before 10? Daniel opened the file. It was not a deck, it was 28 slides of panic. Old Daniel would have fixed it before breakfast, then let Mark say, we pulled it together in the meeting. New Daniel made tea, read the first 5 slides, and closed the file. He answered at 8:12. I can correct the worst errors before 10. I cannot make it client ready by then. Mark called 30 seconds later. Daniel did not answer. He was brushing his teeth. At the office, Mark met him by the lifts. We need to be aligned, Mark said. On what? On the fact that the deck is rough. It is rough because you sent it late. Mark's face changed. Daniel. There was that tone again. Mark had a work version of Claire's voice. It meant, come back to your place. Daniel looked at the watch on his right wrist. I will not say it was mine, he said. The meeting began at 10. The client was on video. Mark's manager, Helen, sat at the head of the table with a pen already uncapped. Priya sat near the wall. Samir came in last and took the chair beside Daniel. The first 8 minutes went as Daniel expected. Mark spoke quickly. The deck looked better than it had, but not good. On slide 9, the old numbers appeared. Helen looked at Daniel. "I thought you had cleaned this." The room went still, in the old familiar way. There was a place waiting for him. He could step into it, apologize, repair the air, and make everyone feel that the correct person had absorbed the problem. His body moved first. His hand reached for the wrong wrist. No watch. He looked at the right wrist and found it. That tiny mistake brought him back. "I corrected the first 8 slides after I received the deck this morning," Daniel said. "I did not have time to rebuild the rest." Mark stared at the table. Helen looked from Daniel to Mark. "When did you send it?" she asked. Mark cleared his throat. "Late last night." "How late?" "Quarter to midnight." No one spoke for a moment. Daniel felt heat rise in his face. He was not ashamed, but his body still thought he had broken a law. The client said, "We can reschedule the second half." Helen closed her pen. "Do that," she said. The meeting ended 12 minutes later. In the corridor, Mark caught up with Daniel. "You made me look incompetent." Daniel stopped. The old answer rose fast. "I did not mean to. I am sorry. I should have found a better way." He let the answers pass. "No," Daniel said. "I stopped hiding it." Mark looked as if Daniel had slapped him. Priya walked past them with her laptop under one arm. She did not stop, but she looked at Daniel once and gave the smallest nod. Samir waited by the kitchen. "That was loud," he said. "I barely spoke, exactly." Daniel poured water into a glass because his hands needed something ordinary to do. His phone buzzed. "Claire again." He read the message. "Mum says you are avoiding everyone. Sunday lunch is not optional." Daniel almost laughed. The word optional had arrived dressed as its opposite. He typed back before he could make it gentle. "I will come for 1 hour. I will leave if it becomes a trial." Then he put the phone down on the counter. Not in either pocket. For the rest of the afternoon, the office felt wrong around him. People spoke a little carefully. Mark closed his door. Helen sent one short email asking Daniel to document when work arrived after hours. Nothing was fixed. Something had cracked. At 5, Daniel shut down his computer and stood. His phone was still on the kitchen counter. He had forgotten to put it in the right pocket, because for once he had not been trying to win against it. Daniel picked it up and smiled. Some loops broke when he stopped feeding them. On Tuesday, Daniel woke before the alarm. That had not happened in years. He lay still, waiting for the usual wait to arrive. The meeting list. Claire, Mark, the small dread of opening his inbox. They were all there, but they did not climb on top of him at once. There was space around them. Daniel got up and made coffee instead of tea. He did not like coffee much. That was not the point. He drank it standing by the window and laughed at the taste. It was too bitter, and it made him feel awake in a way tea never had. He opened the window. The street smelled of rain, diesel, and cut grass from somewhere he could not see. For the first time, the morning felt like it might contain something he had not already rehearsed. At work, Helen had moved the after-hours rule into writing. No client material sent after 6 in the evening would be treated as Daniel's responsibility until the next working day. She had copied Mark. Daniel read the email twice. The room did not celebrate. No one clapped. Mark did not apologize. But a small piece of the office had changed shape because Daniel had stopped holding it in the old shape. Priya passed his desk. "Coffee?" she asked. "Experiment." "You look like it is attacking you." "It is winning." She smiled and kept walking. At lunch, Samir took him to a music shop 3 streets away. Daniel had passed it for years and never gone in. "You said you used to play," Samir said. "Badly." "Most things begin badly." Inside, guitars hung on the wall in clean rows. Daniel touched the neck of a second-hand acoustic and felt a little shock of recognition. He had owned one at 19. He had sold it at 23 when his father said hobbies were fine after real work was finished. Real work had never finished. The man behind the counter handed Daniel the guitar. "No pressure," he said. That helped more than it should have. Daniel sat on a small stool and put his fingers where they used to go. The first chord buzzed. The second was worse. The third rang clear enough that his chest tightened. He had not missed being good at it. He had missed wanting to try. Samir heard it too and looked away kindly. Daniel bought the guitar. It was not sensible. It was not reckless either. It cost less than 3 months of lunches he had never enjoyed. He carried it back to the office in its old black case. People looked, he let them. Mark saw him by the lifts and opened his mouth, then closed it again. That was satisfying. After work, Daniel did not go home first. He took the guitar to the canal path and sat under the railway bridge where the violin woman had played. He knew 4 chords, and 2 of them hurt his fingers. He played them anyway. The sound was thin, the rhythm was poor. A boy on a bicycle slowed down, listened for 3 seconds and said, "You are not very good." "No," Daniel said, "but I am here." The boy considered that and rode on. Daniel played until his fingers stung. The sky over the canal brightened after the rain, not in a holy way, just clearer. The water held the light between the weeds, and for a moment the whole path looked less like a place he had found and more like a place that had been waiting for him to stop walking past it. His phone buzzed on the case beside him. "Claire." He answered. "I bought a guitar," he said. There was a pause. "You what?" "I bought a guitar." "Can you play it?" "Almost not at all." Claire laughed before she could stop herself. It was the first laugh from her that did not try to pull him backward. "Dad hated that guitar," she said. "Yes." "I forgot." "I did too." The silence after that was different. Claire said, "Maybe bring it Sunday." Daniel looked at the canal, the wet path, and the raw marks on his fingers. "Maybe," he said. When he got home, he made tea in the blue mug because he wanted tea, not because the morning had assigned it to him. He wrote in his notebook before bed. "The world was not refusing me." He waited, then added the truer line. "It was answering the life I kept practicing." By Sunday, everyone expected Daniel to do something strange. That changed the house before he even arrived. Claire opened the door and looked first at his face, then at the guitar case in his hand. "You brought it," she said. "You said maybe." "I did." She stepped back and let him in. Their mother's house smelled of roast chicken, furniture polish, and the lavender soap she had used for 20 years. Daniel had not noticed the smell for a long time because it belonged to the old shape of Sunday. Now it met him at the door like a relative. His mother came from the kitchen with a tea towel over one shoulder. "There he is," she said. Her voice was bright, but her eyes checked him carefully. Daniel kissed her cheek. "Hello, Mums. Claire says you bought a guitar." "I did." "That is surprising, yes." His mother waited for an explanation. Daniel took off his coat and hung it on the hook by the stairs. The house had 3 hooks. His coat had always gone on the left one. This time he put it on the middle hook. His mother looked at it. Daniel said nothing. Claire saw it too and almost smiled. They ate at 1 o'clock because they always ate at 1 o'clock. His mother put chicken on the table, then potatoes, carrots, peas, gravy, and the same small dish of mint, sauce no one used. Daniel sat in his father's old chair because that was where he had sat since the funeral. For a moment, he almost moved. Then he stayed. Not every old place was a trap, some were only places. That was new to know. The meal began politely. His mother asked about work. Daniel said work had changed a little. Claire asked if Mark was still alive. Daniel said Mark was alive and probably documenting his feelings in a folder. Claire laughed. Their mother did not. Claire says you have been difficult, she said. There it was, not loud, not cruel, only the family door opening onto the old room. Daniel put down his fork. I have been less available. That is not the same as better, no. His mother looked startled by the agreement. Daniel could feel the place where the old answer belonged. He could have said he was sorry. He could have promised not to worry her. He could have made the whole table warm again by becoming smaller. He did not. I was too available, he said, for years. His mother looked at Claire, then back at him. We are your family, yes. Families help each other, yes. He let both yeses stand. They were true, and they were not the whole truth. Claire sat very still. Daniel went on before courage became performance. I am not stopping that. I am stopping the part where I answer before I know what I think. I am stopping the part where I make everyone else comfortable so fast that I disappear from the room. His mother looked down at her plate. That is a hard thing to hear over chicken. Daniel almost laughed, then he saw that she was trying. I know. For several seconds, there was only the small sound of the clock above the back door. Claire reached for the mint sauce. Daniel stared at her. She had never used the mint sauce in her life. Claire put a spoonful on her plate and looked at him as if daring him to speak. Daniel smiled. Radical, he said. Do not start, she said. Their mother looked from one to the other. Is this part of the thing? Maybe, Claire said. She tasted the mint sauce and made a face. That is awful. Daniel laughed. His mother laughed too, unwillingly at first, then properly. The room changed by 1 inch. That was enough. After lunch, Daniel carried plates to the sink. His mother tried to stop him because she always washed and he always dried. He kept the plates. I can wash, he said. You hate washing. I hate being assigned drying more. She handed him the pan without comment. Claire dried. For 10 minutes, they worked in the wrong order. Nothing broke. When the kitchen was done, Daniel brought the guitar case from the hall and set it on the sitting room floor. His mother sat in the armchair by the window. Claire sat on the end of the sofa with her legs tucked under her, the way she had sat as a girl. Daniel opened the case. The guitar looked too large in the small room. You do not have to play, his mother said quickly. That was the kind of mercy that still expected embarrassment. I know, Daniel said. He took the guitar out anyway. He knew 4 chords. In the sitting room, under his mother's careful eyes, he knew 3.5. The first chord buzzed. Claire looked at the carpet. The second chord was better. Daniel stopped and adjusted his fingers. His mother said, Your father said it was a waste of time. Daniel looked up. She had not meant to say it. He could tell by the way her mouth closed after the words came out. Yes, he said. He was wrong about that, she said. The room went very quiet. That was the largest unloop of the day, and Daniel had not done it. His mother folded both hands in her lap. He was tired, she said. He thought tired was the same as wise. Daniel let the words settle. Claire wiped her eyes once with the heel of her hand and pretended she had not. Daniel played the third chord. It came out clean. He did not play a song. He only moved through the chords he knew slowly until the room stopped waiting for him to fail. When he finished, his fingers hurt and his heart was beating hard. His mother said, that was nice. It was not nice, technically. No one corrected her. Daniel left after exactly 1 hour and 12 minutes. He had promised 1 hour. He stayed 12 extra minutes because he wanted to, not because he had been caught. At the door, Claire hugged him. "You are annoying now," she said. "I know. Better annoying. I will take that." His mother touched the guitar case. "Bring it again," she said. Daniel nodded. On the way home, he did not take the canal path. He did not take the road by the school either. He walked until he found a bus stop he had never used and took the first bus that came. It went north before it went south. It took him through streets he knew by name, but not by sight. He sat upstairs in the front seat because children were right about that being the best seat. The city looked different from there. Not magical, not new, more available. His phone was in his right pocket. He noticed it and left it there. The old pocket had one for the moment. That no longer meant he had lost. On Monday, Mark avoided him until noon. Helen sent him one new project with a clear deadline and no apology hidden inside it. Priya asked if he had survived family lunch. Samir asked if he could hear the guitar sometime, and Daniel said yes before fear could make him interesting in the wrong way. The new project was not easier than the old work. That mattered. Daniel still had to think, check numbers, answer questions, and sit through a meeting where someone used the word urgent twice for a thing that was not urgent. Life had not become soft because he had moved a watch and bought a guitar. But the work stayed inside its own edges. At 4, Helen came to his desk. "Good work on the new brief," she said. Daniel waited for the extra request that usually followed praise. It did not come. Helen only nodded and walked away. Daniel sat still for a moment after she left. Praise without a hook was almost suspicious. Then he accepted it. That evening he met Samir by the canal with the guitar. Samir brought 2 coffees and no advice. Daniel played the 4 chords he knew. The third one came clean twice. A woman walking a dog slowed down, listened, and said, "Getting there." "That is generous," Daniel said. "No," she said, "it is true." After she walked on, Samir handed him one of the coffees. "You know," Samir said, "you were always kind. You are just easier to find now." Daniel looked at him. Samir sipped his coffee as if he had not said anything large. Daniel did not answer at once. The old answer would have made a joke and moved away from the feeling. This time he let the feeling stay. "I think I was hiding inside useful," Daniel said. It was a very tidy hiding place. They sat under the bridge until the light lowered. Daniel played badly, Samir hummed worse. They both knew it and kept going. On Tuesday morning, Daniel opened X and found Pippa Una's LifeUnloop post again. For a minute, he thought of replying with the story. The cup, the watch, the letter, the guitar, the meeting, the mint sauce. He wanted someone to know that the thing had worked. Then he saw the old bargain inside that too. If he told it for thanks, that was one thing. If he told it to be certified, that was another. He closed the app and wrote one sentence in his notebook instead. No witness required. By Wednesday, he had stopped counting every unloop. That surprised him more than the others. For a while, counting had helped. It had shown him the cage. Watch on the wrong wrist. New lunch, wrong road, no apology, guitar, 1 hour lunch, middle hook. Then the counting started to feel like another way to keep score. He did not want a score. He wanted a life. So on Thursday morning, he made tea in the blue mug and did not try to make the mug part of anything. The tea was only tea. He drank it by the window. Mrs. Bell opened her curtains across the street and lifted one hand. Daniel lifted his mug back. The spoon lay on the counter with its handle pointing toward the sink. The phone sat beside the toaster. The small stain remained on the grout. All the old objects were there. They did not own the morning. Daniel checked his email after breakfast, not before it. There was nothing urgent. There were things pretending to be urgent, but they looked tired now. He answered what needed answering and left the rest for work. Then he picked up the guitar. His fingers found the first chord more easily. He played it once, then again. The sound filled the small room badly and honestly. Daniel laughed. He had expected freedom to feel like movement. Some of it did. Wrong roads, strange lunches, clean refusals, one impossible sentence after another. But that morning freedom felt simpler than that. It felt like the day had not been written yet. He made another cup of tea because he wanted one. He sat at the kitchen table with the guitar beside him and the notebook open in front of him. The old list was still there. One surprising thing every day. No explaining it to people who need the old me. Wrong wrist works. Phone pocket does not work yet. The loop is not only in me. It lives in what people expect me to feed. The world was not refusing me. It was answering the life I kept practicing. Daniel read the lines without needing to add to them. That was new too. His phone buzzed. For a second, the old body prepared itself, shoulders ready, face ready, apology ready. Then the preparation passed through him and found nothing to hold. The message was from Claire. Mum bought mint sauce again, none of us know why. Daniel smiled. He wrote back, tradition must be challenged carefully. Claire replied with a laughing face. Daniel set the phone down. He did not put it in either pocket. He did not make a note of that. For the rest of the morning, he did ordinary things. He washed the mug. He put the spoon away. He cleaned the stain on the grout because he had finally seen it enough. He opened the window. He practiced the guitar until his fingers complained. Nothing dramatic happened. That was the surprise. There was no speech to give, no proof to send Pippa Una on X, no final stunt that would make people understand. The unloop had not turned him into a different man. It had given him back the man who could choose. At noon, Daniel made lunch and sat by the window, instead of in front of the television. The chair had been facing the window all week. He had moved it as a small wrong thing. Now it was simply the place where he liked to sit. He ate slowly. Outside, the delivery van went by with both headlights working. Mrs. Bell came out with a shopping bag and looked up at his window. No orange today, she called. Daniel opened the window. Not today. Something stranger. He looked at the tea, the guitar, the clean grout, the phone lying quiet on the table, and the chair turned toward the light. No, he said, today I am being very ordinary. Mrs. Bell studied him. Well, she said, that is unexpected. Daniel laughed after she walked away. He finished lunch and washed the plate. Then he stood in the middle of the kitchen with no plan. The room was quiet, but it did not ask him to stay quiet. For a few minutes, Daniel let the quiet be enough. Peace was real. He could feel it in his shoulders and in the easy way his breath moved. He understood why people wanted it. But peace was not the whole path. If he stayed there too long, he could already feel how it might become another room with the door shut. A pleasant room, but still a room. Another loop. The guitar was there. The canal path was there. The ordinary road by the school was there too. He could call Samir. He could visit his mother. He could learn a fifth chord. He could take the bus north again just because the front seat was good. He did not know which one he would do. That was the surprise. The old day had always arrived already written. This one had not. Daniel picked up the blue mug, then set it down again. He laughed because he did not know whether he wanted tea, music, a walk, or nothing at all. Not knowing did not feel empty. It felt alive. Then one choice rose a little brighter than the rest. Not louder, not urgent, just more alive. The guitar. The canal pass. The chance that he might know a fifth chord by evening. Daniel knew that feeling. He had mistaken it for foolishness most of his life because it did not arrive with proof. It arrived as interest, curiosity, and a small forward pull in the chest. Excitement. Not the frantic kind, not escape. The clean kind that made the next step feel warmer than the others. Now that the old loops had gone quiet, he could hear it. He put the guitar in its case, took his coat from the middle hook, and opened the front door. At the corner, the road by the school ran one way, and the canal path ran the other. Daniel stood there for a moment with the guitar in his hand. Then he followed the road that felt most alive.
If you want more read-aloud journeys in this frequency, subscribe to GFL HFY and ring the bell. New tales land here first. Galactic Federation of Light lore, star family stories, Pleiadian worlds, and quiet HFY after the shift. Integration, not combat. If this one resonated, a like helps listeners who already speak this language find the channel and tells me to keep bringing the next chapter. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next story.